Cinemumble Uncut.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinemumble Uncut. Today, we have with us the actors and directors of the film Cosmos, who were also the crewmates of the film. Let me tell you a little bit about Cosmos. It's a story about friendship and brotherhood, shared passion for a subject, addressing and expressing vulnerability, and grief and healing through acceptance, forgiveness, and apology. Only through coming together and healing each other do Roy, Harry, and Mike achieve something greater than themselves for us all.
Your hosts for today are Rashmi Manuja, the founder of Cinemumble.
And Suhani Lotlikar, the editor of Stare magazine.
Elliot and Xander Weaver have grown up in Birmingham, UK. Throughout their life, they have been connected to filmmaking through their parents. This environment has inspired them to get into filmmaking. Just out of school, they decided to do a script called Encounter, but considering its huge budget, the film was left behind to give way to Cosmos.
Joshua Ford graduated with a first-class degree in acting and won the prestigious John Gielgud Award. Besides regular theatrical appearances, Joshua is best known for the role of the scientist and a keeper of peace, Harry, in Cosmos.
Tom England is an actor, deviser, and writer based in Birmingham, UK as well. As an associate artist of the Wardrobe Ensemble Theatre Company, Tom has written, devised, and performed in a number of shows that have been showcased in the West End and toured extensively across the United Kingdom. He has also starred as Mike Webster in the breakout UK independent film Cosmos.
Arjun Singh Panam works in television and film production as a cameraman and a director. Cosmos is his first feature film as he plays my personal favorite character, Roy. Actually, the fact that I love each character is a testament to the effort the team has put in creating the characters and the universe of Cosmos. Elliot, Xander, Arjun, Josh, and Tom, we're so excited to have you here with us today.
Okay, so just a few introduction questions for all of you. Yeah. What was it like working with a small crew, and what was it like working with family, especially because you guys are brothers? So.
Sure. Well, we could start with that one.
Yeah,
First of all, obviously, thank you for the opportunity to get together and talk about Cosmos. It's always a pleasure, and yeah, we're just thrilled to share what we know. Working with a small crew is great fun. It's intense in some ways because you have to cover lots of disciplines yourself, but it brings everybody together, and there's a nice family atmosphere. And I guess the scale of Cosmos, because it was predominantly set inside a car, honestly, a bigger crew, most of them would have been hanging around outside the car anyway. So the core team that was inside the vehicle, you probably couldn't fit more people in there even if we had them. So it worked for Cosmos, and working as a team, as brothers, it's what we've always known. So we've always made films together as brothers growing up. And well, I think we get on quite well. But
yeah, I think we did. I mean, you should ask the guys, like, what did it work? I don't know. Arjun shakes his head. I mean, you guys were all involved in crewing as well. You helped us put up lampstands and rig sliders and do the clapperboard and stuff. So you were as instrumental in helping us make the movie on behind the camera as well as in front of it. So what was it like for you?
It was great, man. Because for me, at least, it was my first feature film. I've only done like little bits and pieces, to be honest, with film stuff in the past. So it was actually a really great way to sort of learn the whole process, and it gave us all, I think, a really nice insight into filmmaking and how it all comes together. So it was nice from that perspective, completely independent of the acting anyway, because it sort of gave you a really nice grounding in film, a sort of film school, if you like, sort of accelerated film school, which has been really cool and been really nice since to sort of mull things over and think, oh, maybe I could write that, or I could start, like, you can think about how shots would come together, or like just at least different conversations that you have about different creative projects that you might do in the future. You've got a bit more of an awareness of how it might come together. So I absolutely loved it, and it was great from that perspective. And then from the acting perspective, it was really nice, because doing your first sort of feature film is quite an intimidating thing to do. So to not have a huge number of people sort of crowding that space was really nice actually, and it felt really intimate and really sort of comforting to be acting with not too many eyes on you. So from that perspective, it was really liberating, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think one of the best things about it is that what you're doing on a daily basis isn't restricted to your job description. As in, if you're on a bigger crew, whether it's TV or film, a camera person does one job, a camera assistant will do another job. And once your job is done, you're literally just waiting till you're required again and being ready for the next setup and so on. But with this, everybody was having to do everything. So you learn a lot more, you get to do a lot more. The making of the film is essentially down to everybody that was there, rather than just having little jobs that, added to the film instead. So yeah, I think it's one of the best schools to learn, getting it done yourself.
I don't think I've worked on any other project before or afterwards where I've learned as much about film, about acting, about the whole creative process than Cosmos. And I don't mean not only you learning constantly day to day from Elliot and Xander, but learning from Arjun and learning from Tom. And I think that was a very mutual thing. I think we were all so on board to develop ourselves that we were so on board to help develop each other. And I think we all were just thriving off that whole experience. To be able to learn together and to grow together was something I think quite special. I think we were all doing it.
I agree.
It's like a group project.
It is
Very much so, yeah.
Tom, I think you mentioned about your previous experience. You've previously worked in a sci-fi film. Is that like the genre you want to go for ahead, or are you willing to try something new?
I think the reality is you sort of just get whatever you're given. I think so. I love sci-fi, so I'd love to do more sci-fi stuff. I've just done another feature film which is in the same sort of genre, sort of sci-fi thriller drama kind of thing, and I love that. I'm sort of open to anything really. I don't like my actual sort of taste in film is not sort of limited to anything in particular, so I sort of would be open to doing anything really. I'm sort of happy to explore the realms of the acting world.
Arjun, since this was your first feature film that you acted in, would you like to continue acting, or would you like to go into TV behind the camera?
I think I'd probably continue doing a little bit of both, but acting is what I wanted to do to start with. It's what I was interested in doing as a child, growing up as a boy, watching films. I just wanted to act, but because you only see the actors on screen. So when you think about making films, you only think about the actors. You don't think about all the other jobs. And as you grow up and you learn more, you talk about it more, you learn from other people what making a film involves, you realize there's so many other jobs. And I quite like having my hands in all the different things you could do, whether it's writing or editing and so on, and camera work. But primarily I wanted to be an actor. And right now my focus is just acting as much as I can. And obviously working as a cameraman pays the bills, and it's good work and it's good fun. So I'll continue doing that too.
Now, this is a question for everybody. What is your favorite film?
Why don't we start with Josh?
Go Josh.
My favorite film is Silver Lining Playbook with Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. When I first watched that, I'd just come out of drama school. I didn't have a lot of money. I was staying at mum and dad's, and I was just not in the happiest of places. And I remember watching that film, and for like 2 hours or however long it was, I was just in and invested. And the acting just took me away, and I loved it. And it's one of those films that I can probably watch 3 or 4 times in one day, and then watch it again 3 or 4 times the next. I love it. I love that film. That's my favorite.
I think there's so many. I don't think there's one particular film I continually go to. So many different films, but most of my films that I like happen to be something I emotionally connect to in some way, whether it's something that makes me laugh or something that makes me think about things. But a film I've recently seen a lot of is Infinitely Polar Bear with Mark Ruffalo in, which is a story about a character who's suffering from bipolar and is looking after his 2 daughters. And it's just a really beautiful story. But something from a film like that to Indiana Jones or Ghostbusters or the Indian films like Sholay and so on. just films you can connect to, and kind of, I guess the films you grew up watching, maybe, just an emotional connect.
Yeah, I don't know. I would agree with Arjun about it's really difficult to pick one. I think the ones that get me like really excitable. I watched Hook again over Christmas, and I was really surprised at my response because it really like took me back to being a little kid, and I was like really deeply moved by it from as soon as it started. For the first 45 minutes, I was like on the verge of tears just because I was so excited watching it, because I could remember everything that was coming up, and I used to love it as a kid. So that's a film that I absolutely love. And then I also really love Forrest Gump, because there's something about the story of it that really I just love so much. I think Tom Hanks is just superb. I could watch Tom Hanks all day. So yeah, those two films have just come to mind. But like there are certain actors and actresses that I could just watch all day. Like if you get the right actor, then you can just sit and watch them. And Tom Hanks is certainly one of them. And Robin Williams. So that, like, in terms of Hook and Forrest Gump, it's like you've got two of the like greats of all time that you can just sit and watch. So, love them.
I agree.
What about, well, first of all, guys, I'm a bit disappointed none of you said Cosmos. I'm joking. Of course. Yeah, I think it's always a really tricky question, isn't it? Because there are movies that you return to regularly and you watch time and time again. But then there are also films that like just stick with you a lot from childhood, actually, I think. So for us, one of those movies that's just stuck with us, certainly Hook, like Tom said, Steven Spielberg's Hook, but also E.T. So for us, E.t. the Extraterrestrial is just like this, it's the epitome of what made us fall in love with movies. It's just warm, it is family friendly, it's full of wonder and hope and optimism. It's an emotive story. It's about children, young people. It's inclusive. It's fantastic.
It's quite mature, though, also for like a film about children. It deals with, parents that have separated and lonely kids and kids that feel left out in the world, and kids versus the adult world that they don't understand, or that the adult world doesn't think they understand, but they do. There's a lot in it. It's very autobiographical as well for Steven Spielberg, so there's a lot of heart in it. And so for us, that's but like Arjun said, we had things like Indiana Jones that we'll go back to time and time again, Back to the Future trilogies, movies in the Forrest Gump kind of league, Gladiator. That was on last night. Gladiator, you just sit there and you're like, God, this is so good.
There are just too many good films. But yeah, for us, the
now we know where the inspiration for Cosmos comes from.
Definitely.
Genuinely, if you watch, we watched E.T. over Christmas, and there are some shots where I'm like, Sam and Elliot that's just Cosmos. I'm like, there's whole sections where I'm like, that's that.
Tom, we watched it again shortly after like the film we'd released Cosmos, and we hadn't seen it for a couple of years. And we had the same realization. We went,
it really is.
Riffed off E.T. here quite heavily. Like we designed the skylines that we did those in visual effects. So the tree lines and the stars and even the colors and things. And we didn't directly reference E.T. when we did that. And I think one of the first shots in E.T. is a tilt down of stars onto a tree line.
It is. It's literally, it's like the opening credits of Cosmos. As soon as it started, me and Grace looked at each other. Grace is my partner. And we were, this is the same beginning.
So it's remarkable how things go in and they really inform, it's that thing that nothing's really original, is it? Like it's always based off of the things that you've seen. So fantastic. Love E.T.
So other than E.T., what was your other inspiration behind Cosmos?
Well, before we made Cosmos, we did a series of documentaries about the NASA's Apollo program in America. And we really enjoyed putting those documentaries together, learned such a lot. We were already interested and passionate about space and sci-fi, but that just really heightened it. So we were watching all this archive material of the ground control team. And they were so smart and so level-headed and cool under pressure. And they were these engineers. And we thought, these guys deserve to be front and center in a movie, the heroes themselves, rather than the dorky, geeky scientists in the background. They should be front and center on their own poster. So we like we said, we were heavily inspired by Steven Spielberg, wanted to create a family-friendly, fun, heartfelt movie. And we're passionate about sci-fi, so we thought we'd pull some engineers into the mix and try and tell a story. Just using three actors in a car, really. That was the challenge, and hopefully some people think we did that okay.
Okay, the next question is for Arjun, Joshua, and Tom. What was it like being Harry, Mike, and Roy? And also, how did you get into the process of being those characters?
That's good. It's tough, isn't it? Because we've done it so long ago. You do have to think back and go, how did I do that again? To play Harry Knight, I mean, Harry Knight, it's lovely because they just become so much a part of you, and they basically are just you. Well, Harry Knight is basically just me, but and no one else has. I have a relationship with Harry Knight, with a made-up character, which no one else will understand. But me and Harry are so. I adore him. I think he's an incredibly sweet man, and it was lovely to play him. I really, really, really like him. I'd go for a beer with him. I'd go for a beer with him.
Yeah.
100%.
I remember you saying, Josh, that you felt that once you put that the costume on and you were in that environment of the car with the computer screens and the light and everything, that suddenly it just felt such a evocative kind of space, I suppose, that it really.
Yeah. 100%. Harry, he wears glasses, and he also had a wedding ring. And for some reason, all the other costume is important, the boots and everything, and all of that. But the glasses and the wedding ring, they were almost like the Batman mask. You put them on, and then suddenly you're Harry Knight. For me, I remember when we did the ADR after we filmed, and I had to put the glasses on and the wedding ring just to sort of do it again, which sounds really weird, but for me that was my get-in, wearing the glasses, wedding ring, and yeah, that's how I did it.
There he is, Harry.
Harry Knight.
I think my process was simply learning the thought process of Roy, just trying to learn about where he's come from and where he is right now, what he's feeling, what he's thinking. While reading the script, instead of just trying to learn the lines so I can repeat them, I try to learn what the person is thinking, and that puts me in their shoes. Makes me empathetic to what they're feeling, and that was my process of. And once you're in the car with these guys and you've got the to and fro, back and forth, and you're just reacting to what they're doing, and you start to feel what you thought, Dr. Roy should be. Not Dr. Roy, he wasn't a doctor, was he? What engineer Roy should be feeling.
He might be now.
Yeah,
I might be now. Yeah, since the film he's been studying. But yeah, just learning the thought process of what Roy should be feeling and what he's been through.
I think the interesting thing about Arj is that he's the guy who's least likely to kind of give you the cold shoulder. And at the beginning, he's very hurting and not struggling, but just in pain. Really, he's a guy who's in pain. He's lost something, and Arjun's just a very sweet, kind, smiley guy. So we'd be like, Arj, can you look like you're just upset? And it's just the most odd thing to see Arjun with a frown, because he's not that guy. But he does it so well. And then when he comes good in the end, that warmth comes through, and it's a lovely arc, I think.
I think for me, it's like finding the stuff in the person that you're playing that like resonates with you, so that you can feel like super comfortable with it. So there's a bit where Mike is explaining about radio astronomy and showing pictures, and that bit for me is like, okay, cool, that's what he gets really excited about, and that's what he loves to do. So it's sort of just tapping into that and feeling that excitement yourself and really leaning into it, because it's like, what's so nice about acting is you get to like explore what it would be like to be a different person through that, and to imagine yourself like, yeah, I could be really excited about that. It's like I could love that. So it's an opportunity to be excited about something and to be knowledgeable about something that you've never had a chance to explore in your life. So it's like that for me. It's like just trying to work out the things that like resonate with you and how you can make them as comfortable in your body as anything else. So yeah, that's how I get into it.
That's a great process for all of you guys, and it surely showed in the film. So I have a question for Elliot and Xander specifically. Was there a connection between Mike looking for funding for his project and you guys looking for funding for your projects?
It's very possible.
It's quite possible, yeah. There are actually several things that we realized after making the film that are slightly autobiographical, but not intentionally. And yeah, that's one of them. We've spoken to people and they've said, do you realize there's like a parallel there with what you've been up to with your relationship with, for example, one of them is our relationship with filmmaking with our dad, who sadly he passed away just before we started filming the movie. And he'd been unwell for several years. And when we were writing it, we were writing a story about three people who all shared a love of something, but specifically there was this sense of loss of between Roy and Harry. They'd worked on a project together. It was their dream to see it lift off and go to space together, and it kind of it didn't happen the way that they'd hoped. It didn't work out, and that's actually quite autobiographical with us with our dad, because you know the dream was to make movies with him and hopefully make Cosmos with him, and that didn't happen. And so there are all these little things that you look back on and you go, I really do think you consciously, but also quite often subconsciously or unconsciously, write your own personal stories and experiences into whatever you're doing, whether that's screenwriting or whether it's painting or music. I don't think you can avoid actually putting yourself into it, and sometimes you don't even realize you've done it. So but yeah, I think it makes sense that at the time when we were writing Mike's character, Tom's character, that yeah, we would have had that experience ourselves of struggling to find funding, realizing the pressures and the how frustrating it was and difficult when you had that passion, and then projecting it onto the character and going like, well, it's a great motivation for him to be concerned and to push him forwards with his work. So
we've actually had emails from people who have watched the film who are in engineering and they're in the science communities, and they've said you've really captured the spirit of what it's like to be a scientist who's somewhat sidelined by the economics of the industry, and how you can be working on something for years researching, and then suddenly the funding is just pulled and it's irrelevant what you think and what your advances have been. And we were sitting there obviously going, wow, I mean, we have no experience in that world personally, so maybe we did draw upon our own references as creatives. There are parallels there where you love something deeply, but if the business element doesn't line up, then you know it's sometimes tricky to get the ball rolling on these things. So yeah, never thought about that, but thank you. That's another it's nice to have those. Sometimes people can reflect things back at you, which is a real gift.
There was a funny one, a filmmaker friend of ours, he said, you do realize you've made a movie about filmmaking, don't you? And we went, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, it's people crammed into the car, lots of equipment, batteries are running out,
saving the data,
you know, recording, saving the data, arguments. You know.
We were like, oh wow,
yeah, that's exactly what we've done.
Leaving the equipment behind if it doesn't fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
That's Honey's favorite scene.
I still miss Annabelle.
I know. Wow. We've got a little post-credit scene that we've got to release of Harry. I've been driving back to get Annabelle, so.
Yeah. I've been saying it for ages. I've been saying it to Ellen's and guys, we've got to share that scene, because so many other people go and have said, oh, he just leaves it and never goes back. But I know he does go back. I know he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it like working with research gear as props, and how did you manage to?
Well, the technology within the film. Well, a lot of it is just is made up, fictionalized film sort of props. You know, so the telescope, for example, is a tripod flight case that we put on a film tripod, and just in post-production you put some sound effects on and it sounds like it's servo driven. It's all very very indie filmmaking in the spirit of pure indie cinema. So a lot of the props are in the antenna that the guys walk around in the woods. Those are just lighting lamp stands turned upside down with some linking lights on, and yeah, the biggest part of the creation of that really was the computer screens and the interfaces that the guys program on, and those were again all designed and made by Xander. Fictional programs that the guys could type on and interact with in the car, and yeah, so I think a lot of it was based on. So, for example, there's the radio dish antenna on the side of the car, and some people go, oh well, that's just clearly an umbrella with gold foil on it, and it's like, it is. That's exactly what it is, but that's actually based on the Apollo lunar rover umbrella antenna that was on the rover. Like, they literally designed an umbrella antenna. The umbrella antennas are actual things, so yes, they are umbrellas because they are the same design. So we were very like trying to be inspired by real technology, but movieizing it. I mean, the last thing you want a telescope to have as a light capturing device is a light inside it. That would completely defeat the point of a telescope, but it looks very cool.
It looks better, so, you know.
I can't see any stars, I can just see a green light. What's going on?
That's it.
But it looks great, and that's what movies are half about. It's a fairy tale.
You want to inspire people as well to kind of maybe pick up a telescope and have a look themselves, and part of that is making it exciting and fun. And also we like the homemade nature of the equipment as well. I think it says something about the characters and about their hobby for it, that they've pulled together this gear and it doesn't all match. It's not all the same stuff, and they've pulled together what they can to keep their hobby going. So yeah.
How did you manage to translate good writing into filmmaking?
Well, that's a team effort, really. It's interesting when you write. We've never directed anything that we haven't written, and I think that's a very interesting experience for directors who they take a script that's given to them and then they have to decipher what the writer was thinking, like what's the writer's intention here and how can I translate that and work with an actor. Obviously, when you've written it yourself, that whole middle ground is cut out, and your job as a director actually is a lot easier because you're not sitting there with the actor going, what do you think they meant? You can go, well, I know exactly what they meant because I wrote it. And so that it then just becomes a process of sitting with the guys and in the moment going, well, this is what we're thinking. I think it would be interesting to get the opinions on the guys here, but I think that the importance for acting is to be very much grounded in that moment. And then what the director then brings to that is how this moment fits into the overall. So as a director, you're kind of sitting there going, that's a great idea, but I know when we dovetail this together with the next scene, it might work or might not work. But that's the genius of the acting, is that if there's that foresight happening in the acting moment, then you don't get those natural performances. So you're two sides of the same coin, really, as actor and director. Anyway, you guys, what do you think?
No, that picking up on that point, there was I watched an interview with Matthew McConaughey when they were talking about True Detective, and he's like blooming great in that. Yeah. And they asked him how he was so good in it, and he said that he just tries to do as best he can in any scene. So like for any scene, he just focuses completely on that and just delivering his best for that moment. And he has to just trust that whoever else is looking after everything else does a good job of linking it all together. And which I never really thought about. I always thought that maybe you have to have the whole thing in your head and think about where you're going, which you do as well to a certain extent. But like I like that because it's quite liberating to just think, right, if all I do is just pour my energy into the exact thing I'm doing right now and try and be as present as I can right now, then it should take care of itself. And it's like an act of trust in everybody else's job. And that's what, because it was like my first feature film, that's sort of what you have to do because you're so scared. You just go, okay, I can only do this. So I'll just do this. But then like it worked out pretty well, I think, because Elliot and Xander had a handle on everything else. But so there's that. But then I think there's also just like since we've done it, I've got a bit more understanding of storytelling and like narrative arcs and things like that. And it's really cool to keep returning to Cosmos, being like, okay, that was that's the sort of first act, the second act, the third act, like that, the midpoint, that's where it shifts. Like in that scene, that's where the dynamics shift, and then the pace picks up from there. So it's really cool to like the sort of journey of learning about film and storytelling. I think for anybody, whether you're a creative or not, is so exciting, because then you start to, everything you watch, you go, oh, that's the tipping point, or that's the middle now, or that's the inciting instant where then it'll speed up from here, and the resolution is coming here. Like it's so fun, man. It's brilliant. It's really nice to look back at Cosmos and be like, with fresh eyes each time and notice those moments.
That's cool. It's really cool that you've started doing that actually. Yeah, and you can't help but watch movies and go, oh, okay, yeah, or something will happen, and then you'll check your watch and be like, yeah, okay, that's
yeah, exactly. Go on. You're literally like, oh, we're literally right in the middle of the film, and they've just started changing how they think about each other.
Yeah. The other thing I think as well is that I think you have to really, once you've written something, I think you have to really trust and have faith that what you wrote in that moment was right, and that that's not to say that you don't have flexibility with the story as you make it, but to really trust it, because as a writer, the only time, and as a writer-director as well, the only time you're ever going to see your movie, like an audience will ever watch it, is in the moment that you come up with the idea, the moment that you go, oh, and then we could have this bit where Mike gets the grabber claw and he leans over and it's going to be funny and it will creak and you won't want to wait. And you enjoy it and you smile and you laugh when you're coming up with the ideas. But after that, it's a case of making that happen. And the idea then, it's no longer fresh, it's no longer new. You've seen it a million times, it's no longer funny to you. And so you have to always just go, I remember sitting and writing that, having a great time with it. And we felt that it was going to be good, and we have to trust it. We have to stick with it, because for fresh eyes, it's something different, it's something new. So yeah, maintain a flexibility, but definitely trust in your moment of kind of creative of creation for your script.
Going off that, I think as well, during the whole of Cosmos, there was an absolute open dialogue between us and Elliot and Xander about particular lines, particular scenes, and say, for example, I'd say, oh, would it be right if we changed that word or here and there? And more often than not, it's like, well, yeah, of course, it's fine. But sometimes if it was specific, and similar to what Tom said, it was my first thing as well, and you kind of throw in your faith and your trust to completely someone else. If it's specific, and oh, can we do this? Can we say that? They wouldn't be afraid to say, well, not really. This is what we're doing, and you're going to go, okay, cool, and you just trust them, and that's, it worked. I think Cosmos, you just trust Elliot and Xander, and it'll work. But we were quite fluid with changing things if we wanted to. Words here and there, and
yeah.
Like that. It was quite nice.
It's interesting because if you watch interviews, sorry if we're going on too much about this topic, but and I want to hear what Arjun has to say as well. But it's funny when you watch interviews as a director with other directors who are obviously more senior than you. You're watching interviews about big movies, and you'll get some directors who go, oh, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to manhandle people, I don't tell the actors where to stand, and I don't tell them how to deliver their lines, and I just want to observe and capture something natural. And like, that's an entirely viable way of directing. It's an interesting way of directing. And then you get other directors who are a little bit more hands-on, because they're creating a film in a different way. So for example, Steven Spielberg, the way he moves the camera around and he blocks a shot specifically, he can't say, oh, well, just wander where you like, because the actor will just wander off frame and they'll be like, oh, this isn't what we had planned. So it's interesting how a different film or a different subject matter, different actors and relationships. I think our relationship with Arjun, Josh and Tom, I think we had a group family friendship, and we all treated each other the same way, but then almost each of you had a different thing that you looked from us. I think as actors and directors, I think each of you would ask us different questions. So our relationship with you individually was unique to what you needed, which is really interesting. Arjun, what did you think of that? Yeah.
Well, I've forgotten what the original question was.
Sorry, Arjun. That's the sign
but yeah,
answer that goes on for too long.
no. In terms of, I think filmmaking or storytelling, one of the most important things that I see in a good film or a good story is finding the truth and the truthfulness, which comes from the writing. And as Ellie and Xander said, it helps because they're the writer and the director. And I think that's where the trust comes in, where if a writer and a director don't trust each other or what the other person has written or what the other person is making, those are the films that kind of don't make sense when you're watching them. You're not quite sure what they're trying to say. But when I read the script, I knew exactly what they were trying to say. Yes, the film was about, sci-fi and it's about space. But to me, the truth of the film was the relationship between these three people. And as soon as you trust that, you can let yourself go. And whatever they ask you to do, you just do it as required or as you think they require you to do it. And once you find that truth and trust, I think everything else takes care of itself. And one thing I keep saying about these guys is every single shot, every single scene, it wasn't a case of that's fine, we'll just get on with it, that'll do. It was a case of getting it right, exactly what they had written. And if it didn't work, finding out why it doesn't work and then working their way around that. Because it's different when you're in a team and in an environment and you see it all happening live and you go, actually, that doesn't make much sense anymore. So you change it accordingly. Not that happened. There wasn't much of that. But yeah, I think trust and connecting to the truth of what story you're trying to tell. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Excuse the pun.
It is interesting. I think another thing that we get asked a lot is about how rigid we were with, for example, we storyboarded the whole thing. I think a lot of filmmakers go, oh, I wouldn't like that because I want the flexibility of being able to just grab a shot here and there. But conversely, our experience was having that storyboard gave us such confidence that if we got these shots, that it would click together in a way that wasn't just observed. But I heard an interesting phrase once said by a director, and they said it's not enough for the camera to see the scene. The camera has to underscore the scene. The camera is a character. It's not enough to just observe the scene. That's not enough. In movies, it's got to say something. And so by having that plan, that allowed us to have such confidence that if we saw a little moment, we could just be like, let's grab it because we know we've got what we need. We're completely confident and safe what we've got in the can. We can go off piste here. We can come up with a cool little line. Arjun's thrown a line in here. Let's go for it. So conversely, I think being prepared actually gives you a lot of freedom, which is perhaps what I wouldn't have thought the first time around.
Well, I guess speaking of being confident, I'm going to take you on to the conversation about the no budget practice. Both of us are a startup platform as well, so we understand your struggles. We would just like you to share a little bit about the no budget practice that you've done with the film.
Sure, yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, who's listening, Cosmos was produced with, we say a budget of $7,000, but in reality, we don't really know how much was spent on it, but it wasn't much. It took us 5 years to make it, and over that time, no individual person who was involved in the project got paid to work on it. So the money was spent on things like expenses. We bought a bit of equipment, some software, things like that. But everyone involved, the actors, ourselves, our mom, very important member of the crew, no one was paid. And the reason we did that was because we'd tried to raise a budget for a film before Cosmos that had a significant budget. It was £5 million, and we were quite young. And understandably, people, didn't really trust us with £5 million when we were 19 and 21 years old. So they kept telling us, go away and make a movie, show that you can do it. And then with that, you'll be able to raise more funds in the future. So we stepped away from that project and we challenged ourselves to write something that we felt we could achieve with what we had available. So we had a lot of equipment because we were freelance cameramen and editors. And we had lots of cables and computer screens, and we had a car, and we said, what's the fewest number of characters that we could get away with setting a movie about this subject matter. And so we thought 3 was great for the triangle of the relationships, and then we just set about doing it. And obviously with no money, things take a lot of time, which is why it took 5 years. But also something incredible happened because we've crossed paths with Arjun, Josh and Tom, and because none of us were doing it for a paycheck, we've bonded in just such an incredible way over this shared love and passion for acting, for storytelling, for cinema. And I don't know, there was something very, very powerful in that. It continued to motivate us every day that we worked on it in post-production. It was just my brother and myself. And all we were thinking of is these three guys. We were just thinking, they've given us so much, they've put so much into this, and we can't let them down. So that was just a huge inspiration for us. And yeah, it was really, really, really hard work. And these guys, I'm sure, will also vouch for that. You know, they didn't have many comforts, and and the schedule was quite grueling, but it was so rewarding. And to be able to step back and look at Cosmos and go, yeah, we just did that because we all wanted to make a movie, and we just did what we needed to do. I'm immensely proud of it.
I think there's something about like when you don't have a budget, or when you're not getting paid for something, there's like weirdly like way more like creative security, because you can be pretty sure that everybody there is there for the right reasons. Like in my experience, at least, of any like creative project, is that the problems start to come when money arrives, because then it creates different dynamics or hierarchies or things, not necessarily problems, but things that need to be negotiated, or things that financially negotiated, but also like emotionally and in terms of relationships. Whereas actually, when there is not a budget, or when you're not getting paid for something in that moment, at least you are very sure that you're all there to create the best thing that you can. You've all kind of got each other's backs, and you almost don't need to worry about the world. That this money is very of the world, whereas sort of messing around with your friends in a car is very of childhood. So you sort of feel a lot more like a child when you're not getting paid. Obviously everybody needs to live, so you can't just have a life not being paid ever, which would be an ideal world, actually, I think. But no, there's actually something quite liberating about not being paid.
Yeah,
I
think you're totally spot on. And also people, yeah, there's a totally different dynamic when money is involved. And I mean, the level of trust that was involved here, as an example, like we've obviously got contracts with all of these guys here, but we didn't get contracts in place until after we'd shot the movie. We shot the movie, and we were in post-production, and we thought, oh, hang on a minute, I guess we better make sure they're happy for us to actually distribute this film and have their faces in this, but the level of trust, we'd gone through 60 days of filming, and at any point, Arjun, Josh, or Tom could have just gone, guys, I'm a bit sick of this, actually. We had no security. We had no protection to say, well, you agreed and your name's on this. And yeah, I think just incredibly remarkable to have found three people, and Ben, of course, Ben Vardy, who's the fourth actor in the movie, willing to give their time and their passion like these guys did. Amazing.
I think, sorry, Zane, going off that quickly, you say, the three of us turned up and you didn't want to let us down. Similar to that, I think if you see two young filmmakers who are as passionate about movies and filmmaking as you are, and you live and breathe it, and you can feel, and you can only get inspired about movies when you're even in your presence, you kind of feel that. I don't know what kind of cruel person wouldn't be able to try and give it their all when they see you two in a room with a camera, because obviously we all love acting and we all love storytelling, but you two you wanted to make the best thing ever. And yeah, no money was involved, but what sort of cruel person would be like, no, I don't want to do it. I know this is your dream, but I don't want to do it. To help you, to see you guys accomplish something and be part of your accomplishment, and that success is as thrilling as anything else. So it wasn't us you had to sort of be inspired by. I think we were equally as inspired by you guys, if I'm being honest.
Thank you, and that means such a lot. And I think what I think is just beautiful about it is that this whole thing, it kind of came full circle into this complete experience. We got to fly out to Los Angeles for the US premiere of the film, and that is we were this family. We'd made this movie together, and we'd gone from a garage in our home city in a car to the Hollywood Hills, and it was all done off passion, trust, friendship. Just, I will forever be super, super proud of this project, and very thankful for everyone involved.
No, I think everybody sort of looks at the film and says there was no budget, and we didn't spend any money on it. But even on things I work on where we have a budget just buys you time and other people's time, and it buys you the skills. But everybody that was involved in this brought that time and brought those skills because you had the passion. So there was a budget, but the budget was all time and passion and everything that we put into this. And that came from the trust of all of us wanting to make the same thing and make a great film. Because a lot of times you sign up to, somebody comes to you with a script, and this will be a good laugh, and on the 7th week and weekend that you've had away from home and it's cold, everybody starts to lose interest, and it's no longer because the people that you're working with may not necessarily have the same passion. They may not have the same skills that are required to make what you wanted to make. So you slowly start to lose interest, and then you become that person who says, I know this is your dream, but it's not working, so I don't want to be part of this anymore. And you can't help it, but you do. But with this, there wasn't a single day where I woke up and thought, I really don't want to go in today. And, I've said this to a lot of other people. After finishing filming, I found it hard to go back to work where I was getting paid, because it wasn't the same kind of fun, and there wasn't the same kind of passion to be found. It was a different kind of thing. But yeah, there was no budget and money, but we more than made up for it with passion and time and skills.
Wow, that's great, you guys. Like, we both work with collaborators as well. So we see people coming in and going out every single day, and there's always new people, but these are the people who come to us because they're interested in the work we do. They're interested in the topics that we cover, interested in having the same conversations as us. So it's all voluntary. But looking at you guys is really inspiring, because that gives me hope that I'm going to find someone like the three of you to work with me one day who's going to finish their project in time with the utmost dedication. So I'm going to keep up with this.
You will. They will come to you. Like, your passion will shine through, and there are people who are passionate in equal disciplines. We're passionate about storytelling from the directing point of view. These guys are passionate about filmmaking from the acting point of view. And if you keep putting yourself out there, people will see that, and they will want to be part of, well, kind of like what Josh just said, they'll want to be part of your journey and your stories and what you've got to say. So we're the same. We've got the same sort of, we're kindred spirits in that sense.
Okay, one very important question I would like to ask you. How did you fit into the same clothes after 5 years?
Oh wow, the story,
a couple of stories.
So the shoot itself was only 60 days. The shoot itself was 60 days over 11 months. So there was 2 years of pre-production, and then there was 1 year shoot, and then 2 years of post-production. So in terms of the guys having to stay their astronaut selves, that was only 11 months. However, we did have lots of variations in tans and sideburns and beard lengths and hair lengths, and Arjun went away and got a tan after we told him not to, and
filming in the sun.
Yeah, we were like, wear a cap. He went away and did a job. He went and did some filming in America, and we were like, Arjun, we're going to be watching you. You've got Instagram, we know. And then we saw a shot of, we're like, wear a cap. We don't want to have to. It's going to be really awkward if we're going to have to make you paler than you are.
Yeah.
And then he was on a canoe.
Too brown.
Seeing him filming on a canoe in the middle of like the Mississippi River or something, and he wasn't wearing a cap. And I was like, Arjun, put a cap on.
Yeah, well, and we had an interesting experience with Tom as well. I can't quite remember. Well, Tom, do you remember the details?
It was
I can't remember specifically, but my weight just went up and down the whole time. It was like some obscure mystery to me. It was nothing to do with the fact that I ate to excess every day.
I don't think. No, I genuinely think something weird happened, because Tom had a pair of trousers that he wore in the January. They fit him perfectly.
No, they were big on him.
They were too big.
That's right. They were big on him.
Really big.
He ripped his trousers initially, so he had to get a new pair, which were too big. And then when he came back in like the May, he looked no different to the eye, but his trousers just didn't fit. And we'd washed them and shrunk them, and we hadn't. They just sat on the pile in our house.
Yeah,
I still don't believe them. That pile had some sort of dust sprinkled on it or something. Because honestly,
think it was a joke.
they were so big. They were like clown trousers beforehand.
Yeah.
And then
Didn't
when I
have to
came
pin
back, I was
them.
like, we had to pin them.
We did.
Before.
Yeah, it was so big.
Yeah, for the green screen shoot, we shot in a studio, and so Tom was standing against this green screen, and because the trousers looked so baggy, we had to clip them on the back of his trousers so the camera.
Yeah, like green screen side. You just had a load of clips down his
stuck all
clothes.
over it. And then but previously or after that, I can't remember which order.
These are the
was,
things you deal with.
They were so
when
tight.
you've got
those
no
trousers.
budget. You know, normally they'd have a costume department that would have lots of variations, and we've got seating versions. We've got the legs chopped off if you get hot. Not on Cosmos. You have one pair of trousers, and if you rip them, then you're in big trouble.
I'm trying to remember if you did. I'm pretty sure. Did you do a scene where you were in shorts or something? Did that happen?
A couple of
In
shorts.
shorts, yeah. Oh, yeah, probably.
In shorts.
When we were in the car, I think you had jean shorts.
We did some pickups in May.
It was very hot.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And
Yeah, we
just,
did.
like, the shot was like this, so you couldn't see. He was like, "Can I just keep my shorts on?" We were like, "Yeah, it'll be fine."
But all the costumes were the actors' own clothes, apart from well, actually, yeah, Arjun's coat and Josh's coat were our coats. But everything else, when we were sorting out the costumes for the movie, we'd go like, "This is the kind of thing we're looking for." And we sent them pictures, this kind of vibe, and then they sent us photos of them in different things from their own wardrobe, and we were like, "That's it, perfect."
Yeah,
So
that's
the no-budget way of doing wardrobe.
What is your best memory from set?
There's a few. I think one of my favorite days was when we all got into the garage to film, because the indoor interior scenes were all filmed in a garage that was all blacked out. And we spent the first 2-3 hours, I think, just talking films and just talking life. And we didn't actually film anything, which was what we were there for. That was a really special day for me. And the other one was the meteor shower we saw on one of the last nights when filming outside. I'd never experienced something like that before. You'd only seen it in films. And we saw what we thought, what we speak about throughout the film. And then we were standing under this sky at 4 a.m. in the morning, seeing it all together and witnessing that with these guys. Those are my two favorite days.
It was a moment, wasn't it?
It was the exact meteor shower that Harry talks about in the film. It happened to us at the end of filming. It was the penultimate night, so it was a perfect underscore to the whole thing. What about Tom and Josh? Do you have any fond memories? Rack your brains.
I enjoyed every moment of Cosmos, every aspect, but I particularly enjoyed when there's three of us in the car, in the scenes when there's three of us and we're all resolving something and spitballing ideas from the script and just talking and really being in that moment, and like the Uncle Rat scene where there's three of us there having a laugh, and those scenes when there's three of us really acting and vibing off each other was just so fun. But yeah, it's tough to pinpoint one specific. Uncle Rat, I'd say, but they were all very fun.
Yeah, there are so many special things, like Arjun talked about the meteor shower and so forth. But there were also things that you that aren't so obvious. Like on one of the first days that we filmed in the garage, the actors all went home after we'd finished, and we packed up, tried to start the car, and the battery was flat. And Arjun came. He had just got home and he was in his pajamas, chilled out after a day's work. And he got dressed and he drove all the way back out to us and helped us start the car. And there was a day where Josh came in on his own to do some shots. And again, we had it planned to start at 9 o'clock or whatever. And we just spent the first 2 hours just talking about life and about just movie making and passion and life and things. Moments like that, you just stop and you step back from what you're doing slightly. And it's interesting that you remember them so fondly. With Tom as well, I remember
just laughing.
I remember there's the classic moment where the actors just couldn't keep a straight face, which happens, I think, on every project. There's a particular dramatic moment where Josh turns to Tom, and Tom just, every time he saw Josh's face, just couldn't help himself. But we'd play, like, I don't know if you remember, Tom, we'd put a lamp stand up and we'd have to throw our cap on, like at lunch. Yeah. We'd made this game and we'd throw our cap and try and get it on. And Also outside on the driveway, there were loads of pebbles, and we tried to stack the pebbles as high as we could. Just little things like that have nothing really to do with filmmaking, but everything to do with the group. Those are very special.
Yeah.
Remember, I was always DJ in the breaks. I got my phone.
Yes, Josh.
Yeah, true.
Spotify.
Yeah. No, I think mine is probably the Perseid meteor shower as well, of just that moment. But I think in particular because that sort of distilled a feeling that I had like throughout it, which is quite difficult to articulate, which is just like this real like excitement that is so difficult to find as an adult, but this feeling that you're doing something that you're never going to forget, you know, like you're, and it doesn't happen very often, but you're aware in the moment that like what's happening now, I'm not ever going to forget. And I want to tell like my children and my children's children about this. Like, and that happened like it was like a sort of feeling throughout it of like, the idea that I'm even doing this is like so exciting to me. Like, and that like, that Perseid meteor shower thing sort of felt so apt, because I think that's like a similar feeling for all of us. And that moment was like, of course this is happening. Like, of course this moment is happening at the end of filming this film. It made sense for it to happen. So it was like, good, thank you. Whoever, you know, whatever you believe, it's like, that was supposed to happen.
A little nod to say we're watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember I think one of my favorite moments is when we showed the guys the film for the first time. We finished the film. Xander and I had locked it, and we were like, I think this is it. And
super nervous.
And then we invited them around to our house, and we got a little projector set up, and we showed them. And the whole way through, I was sitting behind them, watching them like this, going, oh, you know, are they smiling at a certain moment? Have we got them hooked? And when it finished, there was this outpouring of, I think it was like relief that it actually had worked, disbelief that it actually would worked, pride that it had actually worked, and this excitement that we felt like we were sitting on something that we had. It kind of feels like the way I think about it is it's a bit, I mean, I don't know because I've never robbed a bank, but I'm going to say it felt like we pulled off a heist. We pulled off a heist. We were like these bunch of friends, these misfits, these people that don't really know what to do other than create, came together, made this film, think we can pull it off, and then we could, and there it was, and we were going, we did it.
It was like that moment in a bank robbery movie where they're all like handing out the money at the end, and it's like all in slow mo, and everyone's like, "We actually did it! We got away with it!" And
yeah.
I remember all the guys, but Tom in particular. After we watched it, we all jumped up and we were all in a big group hug. But I remember Tom just saying like, "We did it! We made a movie!" You know, because the way we made this, you can't help but be thrilled when you get to step back and look and go, it actually is a film. It's actually a film. Like somehow with no money and with just a small group of people, we made a movie. So yeah, that was an amazing experience.
So we do have a question specific to Mike and Roy. Why did the characters accept each other so suddenly?
Yeah, so why they get over the difference so quickly? Yeah, I mean that's a good question.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
I think it's similar to what we've been talking about. I think the character of Roy realizes the passion that Mike has, and realizes what he himself is and what he has been doing and why he got into doing what he was doing, and overcomes the pettiness of what he was feeling before that. There's something much bigger than them. So it's not just about what has occurred with him. So although it looks like he's overcome something quite quickly, there is so much going on that's so much bigger than them. And whether it's scientists or filmmakers, it's all about teamwork. And when you're required to do anything for, whether it's a scene or whether it's a part of life, you stand up and you get done what needs to be done. And I think Roy realizes that and knows that Mike needs him and tries to be there for him.
I think you see glimmers of Roy's warmth come through earlier in the movie. So there are times, for example, Tom talked about the scene where Mike discusses radio astronomy, And there are moments in that scene where you see a softness to Roy's character. You know there's more there. We see him staring at the satellite as it flies over on his computer screen. And there's more to this character than we realize. And so, yeah, Roy sees Mike as the kind of embodiment of his misfortune, really. And actually, when Harry mends that relationship by explaining to Mike, I think they both appreciate that they're basically the same person. They both have a passion for what they do, and like Arjun said, they're dealing with something much bigger, and so they're forced to kind of come together.
I think it's talking about it's interesting, it dawned on me relatively recently, talking about the autobiographical element of the film again. We've touched on I mean, this is very, very deep, but we've touched on the fact that, you know, during the making of the film, we lost our dad, and during the writing of the film, we were dealing with that. And, you know, we were dealing with him having an illness, and it was starting to slip away from us in terms of what we could control. And one of the things you learn going through that experience is that it's very hard to accept that love isn't enough to save someone you love. Basically, no matter how much you love them, with every fiber of your being, it's not enough sometimes. Sometimes things just don't work out. And so when you're writing a script, again, this is something we've thought about looking back. It's interesting where Xander and I wrote a film where love is enough, where admiration for one another and friendship and camaraderie is enough to save the day. It is enough to bring people together and heal, literally heal something that was wounded. So I always like to think that Roy and Harry are. I think Roy sees something. Sorry, Roy and Mike. I think Roy sees something in Mike. It's almost a reminder of who he once was when he had the passion for what he was doing. So yeah, there's a lot in there if you want to look into it.
Guys, we have a very interesting segment for you now. We're gonna do a little rapid fire round.
Cool.
Okay.
Another rapid fire.
Sounds great.
Who is your favorite director?
Yeah, Xander.
Oh.
No, come on now.
I think we'd have to work with them separately to know, because together they work as one, even though they're two bodies and two minds, they function as one somehow. It's really strange to see, really beautiful to see how they're not pulling different ways. They're both aiming to make the same thing. So we'd have to work with them separately to know if we prefer either one of them. But right now, we couldn't pick.
Very kind.
They're one.
I don't know.
Josh knows.
On one hand, you've got sort of Xander's passion and interest and camaraderie, and then on the other, you've got Elliot's phenomenal voice messages that he sends. It's it's a really 50-50. They complement each other. I think if they were separated, they wouldn't even find the on button on a camera.
True. True. It's definitely. We can't. Yeah. I don't want to direct on my own. I have no. If Xander said to me, "I don't want to direct anymore," I'd be like, "Oh well, that's it then. I'm not interested."
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Josh would be we'd be lost. We'd be wandering around, going like, what's this camera do? What's this filmmaking thing all about?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite actor?
Not out of these three in the world. Well, of course, outside of Cosmos, we'll say, because of course my top three actors in equal ratio would be Arjun, Josh, and Tom. Goes without saying. I love Tom Hanks. I think, Tom mentioned Tom Hanks earlier. I think he's a spectacular actor. Who else comes to mind?
I think for me, actresses, I think Amy Adams is just mind-blowing.
Amy Adams is brilliant.
Jessica Chastain also, but Amy Adams is just incredible. I really like Tom Cruise as well. Yeah. I think Tom Cruise gets a bit of people don't think he can act that much, or he's not got that much range. I think Tom Cruise knows exactly who he is, and he's happy doing what he does, because if you watch him in films like The Rain Man or Last Samurai, the guy can act the pants off anybody he fancies. He just likes being in Mission Impossible movies. So I think he's a really good actor. damn good at what he does. There's so
But
many.
I mean, they not a scratch on.
Well, no,
not a
Arjun's got
scratch
to run.
on Josh, Arjun, and Tom. Sorry, I mean,
Yeah,
I
agree.
They're my winners.
I would have to stay loyal to my guys.
My boys.
Production or direction?
Ooh.
Production.
Do you mean production in terms of crewing or
In terms of crew.
Direction.
Yeah, directing. Yeah.
Go on, guys.
I was going to say production. Of course, you know, I'm a runner now.
Directing?
Yeah.
I think out of production and directing, it'd be directing.
I've never done any of them.
You'd be a great director, Tom.
Yeah, you can do production.
a bit of directing. We do. I'm in a theatre company, so we do direct each other. So I do quite enjoy that.
Okay. TV or feature?
Real features.
Features.
Yeah, movies.
Features.
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 Advertisements or features?
Features.
Features. Yes. Adverts used to be incredible. They're not so hot now, but some great ones in the past.
Great place to learn the ropes.
A lot of directors come from adverts, like David Fincher and
Michael Bay
and
Tony Scott.
Ridley Scott.
Okay, no budget or big budget?
Oh, that's a really
great.
interesting question. Well, we haven't made a big budget movie. That's the dream. But I've got a feeling one day we're going to have the money and the resources, and I'm just going to look back at Cosmos and say it's not the same. So yes, I want the resources. I want to be able to pay everybody. That would be wonderful. But
I think low budget.
I'm going to say that low budget, maybe on the Hollywood scale, right? $1 to $10 million is low budget. I think that's a sweet spot for movie making. I think that's where you're going to get the most creative stuff.
Okay, a small crew or a big crew?
Small crew or big crew? I think again, small crew.
Yeah.
And again, like if you look at some of these movies, you know, we're talking mega movies these days, $250 million, 4,000 crew movies, but some of the best movies ever made that we all hark back to were made with small 100-person crews with cameras on wooden tripods and
I mean even less than that. You see some of the units on things like E.T. and there's like 6 people there. So it's small crew, I think.
If you had a chance to work with a director, anybody from the world, who would it be?
Guys, you go first. If you could work with any director or anyone around the world, who would it be?
Steven Spielberg, I think.
Tom?
Oh, I don't know.
Josh?
I was just thinking about it.
That's really difficult. That's really tough. I think I would absolutely love to perform some Shakespeare with Mark Rylance.
Oh wow!
Would be sort of magical.
Yeah, that would be mad.
Probably what I'd say. Some Shakespearean performance with Mark Rylance, Othello or Macbeth or something like that would be great.
Oh, no, I don't know actually. I watched an interview with Martin Scorsese, and he just seemed really cool. And he works with similar actors, and he early in his career started with a similar group of people, and has worked with those people, and has got a really interesting way of thinking about storytelling. I think he'd be really cool to work with.
He's super smart filmmaker.
Yeah, really switched on. I'd never really thought about that much. I saw this interview and I was like, my word, he would be so cool to spend. You'd learn so much from it.
He's really well versed in obviously, but not every director is sort of a cinephile, and Scorsese's knowledge about cinema is just insane.
That's what he was saying. As a youngster, he went out and just studied film because he wanted to understand the art of it. He talks about it as in terms of a piece of art, in terms of it being high art, which I just think is so cool. Because films often people don't think about it as being high form of art, and he talks about it as being beautiful, the beauty of it. I'm like, yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Our obvious would be obviously Steven Spielberg. It would be absolutely a dream come true to meet him one day. And I mean, we wouldn't be working with him so much as just trying to learn from him. You know, I think you just spend ages
just staring at him.
I'll be a shadow. I'll follow him around and learn and try and understand how he works and things. But I think actually anybody who recently I've been attracted creatively and professionally to people who are somewhat rebellious. So anyone who sits slightly outside of the norm in the industry. Someone who the other day I was watching some making of The Mandalorian, and Taika Waititi is one of the directors, and he's got something about him. He's just very unique. He's got a really clear voice, but most importantly, he's come from an indie world. He's made independent movies off his own back, and he has this healthy disrespect for the industry. You know, he just has fun with it. He doesn't forget that it's enjoyable, that it's all just make pretend, you know, have fun, tell stories. And anyone who sits in that kind of camp of, you know, being a bit rebellious, I'm excited by. I think I want to connect myself with other people who are willing to do things differently.
Okay, likewise, any actor that you would like to work with?
If I could work with anybody, Tom Hanks.
I'd go Shia LaBeouf.
Oh,
Shia's
good
great.
choice. Good choice.
I'd say McConaughey as well.
Yeah, McConaughey.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to go Indian and go Dharmendra from the 70s and 80s, and still acting, but yeah, I'd love to act with him.
Okay, very important question. Next project, sci-fi or documentary?
Well, yeah, both actually.
Neither at the moment.
Both actually, yeah. We're going to do some more documentaries because we love them and we can, so why not? But yeah, we are in development on another sci-fi feature. It's called The Deep, and we've written the script. We're just doing a second draft. Looking forward to sending it to these guys for their creative opinions because they matter so much to us. But definitely firmly in the sci-fi box. That's can't resist a bit of science fiction. It's great when you're trying to make movies with high concepts and limited resources because there's almost no limit on that, which is great.
Last question. One film you would have loved to work on?
Oh, great question.
Wow.
Joker from the recent films that I've seen quite a few times, and it's I just think it's a masterclass in everything, whether it's acting or music or camera work or directing. Everything about the film is just a masterclass. Just love to have been on it in any capacity, even if it was just making tea.
I think I'd love to work on West Side Story, which is coming out.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Because I started theatre and musical theatre as a kid, and sort of started my love of acting that way. And West Side Story was probably one of the first shows that I had sort of a big part in. I played Bernardo, and
Oh, wow, I can see that working, John.
yeah, tonight, yeah, and to be in that on screen would be so cool.
Spielberg as well. That's going to be something.
Mm.
I think this is niche, but it came into my head of the best exotic marigold hotel.
Wow.
That is niche.
Because the caliber of actor in that would have been like incredible to work on that film, to not even be in it, to just do anything in that film, but to be around those people. Because I thought it would be a rubbish film. Then I watched it and was like, these people are so good at what they do. I don't care about the story. I don't care what's happening. I could just watch these actors. So I would love to have worked on that film.
That's fantastic.
What about you, Al?
Oh, I don't know.
I've got an answer.
Go on.
I'm gonna say the first Star Wars film. So Star Wars,
A New Hope.
A New Hope is now called, and the reason is because at the time no one knew what it was going to be, and a lot of the crew thought it was a bit of a joke. It all looked very silly. It didn't have an enormous budget for what it was trying to achieve, and I think there was a real creativity that was on display behind the movie. I just think it would have been incredible to work on something where you step back from it and then it becomes this worldwide sensation that people fall in love with and means so much to so many people. And then to be able to look back at, I think that resourcefulness that we're talking about that kind of came into play on Cosmos, that's the Hollywood version of it, just times a million. So yeah, I think that would be quite a creatively exciting thing to work on.
Great answer. I don't know. Star Wars. I was thinking Star Wars actually for the same reason. I might go somewhere like not necessarily because of its subject matter, because I think it's a very heavy film, but I think to have been a fly on the wall and watch the making of Saving Private Ryan would have been insane, because I think they were doing something that had never been done before. And I just think as a filmmaker to sit there and watch the monitor and just be like, my God, look at this stuff. This is gonna change movies, and still action movies to this day, war movies, of course, but any action movie, that whole shaking camera, stuttery image, it's just changed the game. So I think to sit there and watch that happen would just be like, I think we're making something here that's going to change movies. That
again, no one like that movie's been out now for what, 24 years?
Yes, it turned 97. I think
97.
98.
Yeah, and people have taken the very obvious from it. They've gone, oh, he shook the camera and he did this with the shutter, but like they haven't necessarily really observed like what Steven Spielberg did. So to be able to sit there and just see and learn would just be a dream. That's a great choice.
There's a great story from that where he had, I think they filmed the beach landing in Ireland because it had a similar coastline to Normandy, and the Irish army were involved. So they had something like 2,000 extras or 1,000 extras. And all these special effects team had rigged the beach with all these explosions. And he kept saying, like, I want the camera down on the sand, like frame it down here on the sand. And all the special effects guys were going, but Stephen, like, we've rigged this beach with explode like for a mile down, you can't see any of it. And he was like, yeah, but if I stand up, I'm going to get shot as the cameraman. I have to be down here in the dirt. This is where the angle would be. And they were all going, I don't really get this at all. And then you watch that opening sequence and you're like, he had an idea in his mind of what he wanted, and none of us were ready for it.
Yeah, it was like there was a documentarian there with a camera on the beach, and it was being filmed as if it was real.
Stunning filmmaking, just like mind-blowing filmmaking.
That's great. I guess that sums up our rapid fire. Just a couple closing questions for you guys. We do want to know about your film that was never funded, Encounter, if I have it right. Yeah, so now that Cosmos is out and obviously it's being appreciated for its work and for what it's worth, are you looking for any investors to go back to Encounter?
It's a strong possibility. Encounter is a project that we would love to make. It's got a lot of heart in it, and we think it's a really interesting movie that hasn't been seen, a perspective on sci-fi that hasn't been seen. So it's a bit of a, with the world the way it is, with COVID and not knowing how we're going to be able to move forward, Encounter is definitely a possibility. We have the script. We have done like a redraft on it where we've gone through it and tightened up some dialogue. And so if we could bring the budget together to make that movie, we would make it. Also, interestingly, in the 10 years it's actually been since we wrote that film, the industry has changed so much now, particularly the visual effects industry, that we think we wouldn't need as big a budget as we needed back then. The industry has really evolved. So it's very possible that Encounter gets made, and we'd love to see it get made.
Wow, well, I hope to see it out really soon.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's fun, I think.
Fingers crossed.
We all like to work together as a crew. Tell us about your plan for the next film. We would love to see the trio again on screen.
Well, so the film that we've written just is somewhat again of like looking at the world around us and wondering what we can do. So it's a single character movie, and actually the single character lead is female. So these are very diverse actors. They're very talented. However, I think on this occasion, we might cast someone else. However, Xandra and I are very, very serious about writing a sequel to Cosmos. So if that does happen, of course, we will see the return of the astronauts. And we watched, we sent a video to the guys recently, actually, about a Guy Ritchie movie. And I know Arjun saw it. I don't know whether the other two guys saw it. But he said, like, he made this movie, he made Snatch early on in his career, and then he went on and progressed onto much bigger movies. And he said, I wish I'd have made a sequel at the time, because I progressed on and I can't really go back there. And that's somewhat how Xandra and I feel about Cosmos. we think in time, if we don't, we'll look back and go, you know, we really should have when we were all together, and you know, it would dovetail nicely with the first movie. So
we have a
really cool idea.
These guys yet.
We have a great idea that we think will just no one will see coming. So fingers crossed we can make that happen.
We love that.
And I think we are. I mean, we're not going to not do that.
And we've also said that regardless of what we do next or in the future, we want to work with these guys. So whether they're on screen or behind the camera, it wouldn't feel right.
They'll all be working on the deep. They don't know that yet.
They don't know that. They'll be there.
They'll be there. We won't make a film without them. But
That's lovely, you guys. Well, we can't wait for a lot more films from you. And a lot more conversations about that. We hope to stay connected with you.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, everyone's got things on the boil. Arjun's writing something, and Josh is writing something, and Tom is in a film that's soon to be released. So you'll probably see these guys before you see us again. But it would be nice to stay connected and obviously see what you're working on and see if we can support you in the same way that you've supported us. And
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Since I am myself from the mass media field and I made my own documentary, I would really love to know your perspective on how a new actor or a filmmaker should start out in the industry, and especially if they have no budget at all.
Yeah, I think from a filmmaking perspective, we made the mistake of writing something not very ambitious. We thought we were being smart when we wrote Encounter, because it's all set in one house and there's only a cast of 5. We were like, okay, we're following all the rules, we're keeping it small, but it got ambitious and it got big. So for anybody who doesn't have the resources available, I would just say, write something that you know that even if you can't get any funding for, you know you can get out there and make it. And most filmmakers these days have a camera, they have some lights, they don't have to be the most expensive things. You know, we shot Cosmos on very affordable equipment, and just don't box yourself into a corner where you can't make it on your own if you have to. It's very liberating to know that you can just get out there and do it.
I mean, sometimes we get asked, you know, why did you choose a Volvo? Why did you go with it? And it's like, well, that's our car. You know, we didn't go out and find a Volvo.
Yeah.
We had a Volvo. That's our family car. We had lots of computer screens, as Xander said. We looked at what we had and then went, how can we make this movie, rather than going. The other thing that sometimes we talk with people, you know, we do podcasts. We were doing a podcast with someone recently and they were in Texas, and we were saying if we wanted to make a film, a Western in the desert, we couldn't. We live in rainy England, but you live in Texas. Like, you could literally walk out your door and get incredible production value. When I watch it, I won't know you lived in Texas. I'll just think, wow, they've gone and made a Western. So look at the world around you and throw it into your movie, because if I wanted to make a movie in the snow or in the mountains or in Texas, I couldn't. So we made a movie in the woods because we live near the woods.
What about you guys from an acting perspective? Like, what advice would you give to people just starting out who wanted to act?
I think similar to what you guys are saying about the directing is just it's so possible these days because there's so many platforms, you know, whether it's online and so on, and just connecting with other people that want to do a similar thing. I think is quite important. It's hard to do everything on your own, but finding other people that have the same passion and want to do similar kind of stuff like we did with these guys and ended up making Cosmos. But yeah, there's so many platforms. Just act. You know, even auditioning is your chance to act. I really enjoy auditioning because it's somebody's taking their time to watch me act, which is what I want to do. So just any chance you get, just do it, whatever it is. Doesn't matter where the platform is, what capacity it's in. Just take it on.
Yeah, going off that, just in terms of acting, just do it in any capacity you can. But also, I think it's cool. I think it's like a cool thing at the moment to be passionate about things, but not to tell others you're passionate about it. I don't know. I think with acting and with any sort of creative, any sort of creative discipline, if you're passionate about it, be proudly passionate about it. If you love acting, tell the world you love acting. I do. I love acting, and I'll tell everyone. It's one of the first 3 things I'll tell anyone. By the way, I love acting, and I think that's cool. I think I think passion's kind of an attractive trait, and I'm attracted professionally to passionate people. And I think if you're passionate about acting, tell everyone you're passionate about it. Love it proudly. I think, and that helps.
It's interesting you say that, Josh, because that's basically how we found you for Cosmos. Like, you were tweeting like crazy about acting. You were just tweeting and doing video blogs about a production you were involved with. You were being passionate and you were telling the world about it. And we just thought, this guy, he's got such a love for it. Like, these are the kind of people that we need. So that's, yeah, so the truth is in the pudding there. On that one.
I suppose that's good advice then.
Yeah. Sweet.
I think I'd just say, I don't know, something I'm trying to do is cultivate this like real appreciation for what you're doing in the moment. So like really, and some people it doesn't work for, but to like not look too far ahead, like to not think that the next big thing is going to come in 5 years, but to think like this might be your big thing, and like and not, the biggest thing I might ever do might have already passed, and the scale of that was fine with me, and the achievements of that are fine with me, and to really revel in what you're doing in that moment, and to just trust like whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it's like actually, even this conversation is a wonderful conversation, so it's like not to shoot too far ahead almost, which is surprising advice, because I don't think I would have ever thought that I would have that approach a few years ago, but that's my approach right now. Might be different in another few years.
I think you're right. I agree. Like patience, or almost like having faith that things work out. I was very impatient when I was younger. When I was 18, I was like, I want to do this, and you can't foresee what life throws at you down the road. What happened to us through our 20s. Some of it was great, some of it wasn't great, but we just kept on trundling, and eventually we made our film, and we met some great guys who we now love as brothers, really. I mean, we are like a super tight family of friends, and that's a gift. That's a real gift. So yeah, just love what you do, like the guys said.
Wow, I guess that's all of our questions for tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bless you guys. Thank you.
Everyone stay safe and well, and
yeah.
Yes, you too, especially in England.
Yes,
true.
We need all the help we
We're
can.
in the eye of the storm. Yeah. Crikey. That's embarrassing, isn't it? Bless you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you all. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
CineMumble.